the Harrison Barnes turnaround game winner against the Golden State Warriors, because it locks the Toronto Raptors into having the 7th best odds in the draft lottery. I think that gives them a 7.5% chance of winning number 1 overall pick. As we wrap up here, no pun intended, I guess let's talk about the Raptors season in review. We talked a lot about, Scotty Barnes and the young core, bringing in Brandon Ingram. They nailed the draft with Shed and Mobo, specifically Mobo had the first triple-double of any rookie this season and saved a good time to do it, doing it in a 30-point blowout over the Hornets last night. So I guess looking back and also looking forward, what do we think about the Raptors, Darko Rajakovic? Maybe his connection with a fellow Serbian native could mean, some links this summer. I don't know. But generally speaking, I guess, what do we make of the Raptors situation moving forward?
First off, did you see the guy that hit the half-court shot last night
for season tickets? Season tickets, yeah.
Season tickets for next year. And my first thought was, wow, that's going to go up in value tremendously when they get Cooper Flagg in the draft lottery.
Yes, sir.
And I wonder if that's even going through that guy's mind of like, all right, I got season tickets next year. Oh shit, we could get the number 1 overall pick and get Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
And now I got season tickets to watch Cooper Flagg play night in and night out. But the lottery is a complete crapshoot now, and I say that in a good way. Like since they put the new odds in order, where the top 3 teams get 14% chance of the number 1 pick, and then it trickles down slowly after that. We have not seen the team that has the worst record in the NBA win the lottery yet. So the ping pong balls, even though they're not in the Raptors' favor, maybe they are, and it feels like again. Ethical tanking, like maybe it was ethical for a while. Then it stopped getting ethical. But hey, you know what? I'm not judging them. They kept it ethical longer than most teams did. It's going to be again a crapshoot based on how the ping pong balls fall. But there's a lot of talent at the top end of this draft class, and if you're a Raptors fan, that's exciting because you feel like you found a handful of pieces this year. Obviously, you made the Brandon Ingram trade at the deadline. You never got to see him play, but like that gives you something to get excited about going into next year. They have some pieces they can move in the offseason. Like you said, they found a couple guys in Shed and Mobo and Grady Dick started to show some flashes. Jacoby Walter started. Jacoby Walter started to show some flashes as well. So, you can start to see the framework of the direction they want to push this team in. And then you add a top 7 player in this year's draft with a lot of talent at the top, we'll call it like 12 of this year's draft before it kind of gets like, more of a, throwing darts at the wall. But the Raptors should be able to secure one of those top prospects. Now, all of a sudden you're looking at a team that if they put it together, we're talking like back to the play-in tournament, maybe knocking on the door of the playoffs next year. Like they get a long way to go before that, but you can see the pieces in place where if you're a Raptors fan, you can at least be excited about having some sort of idea or semblance of what this roster might look like moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. I think the big thing that it's a big credit to Darko Rajakovic. That was something that we talked about when he was hired, his ability to develop players. And we cited Mikal Bridges in Phoenix, and we talked about Desmond Bane in Memphis, 2 guys who he was credited with helping make leaps as players. And we've seen it. You talked about Grady Dick. We talked about Jacoby Walter even in year 1. You talked about drafting well last year. And in this league, in the NBA, you have to have talent, and the Raptors have a lot of talent. And it's similar to the conversation that we were having when we talked about how Brandon Ingram fit within this franchise's future. And I think looking forward, and I think if you're a Raptors fan, it's not 1-for-1 comparison or anything like that. But I think you can look back at what OKC did to kind of jump up toward the top of the standings. And things are really ugly not that long ago. Right. And I think it was like they won like 22 games, 25 games, and they went and won 40 games, lost in the play-in tournament the next year. That was last year. They made that leap to being the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. It might not happen that quickly for the Raptors, but the talent that they've had, and we look at the landscape in the Eastern Conference, outside of Cleveland and Boston, and even to a lesser extent New York, I think it's really just Cleveland and Boston are teams who I feel like are going to be at the top of the Eastern Conference for years to come. Like the Knicks could very much shake things up. They're one, second round loss in 5 games from saying we need to hit the reset button too. So if you are a young team like the Raptors are, and you say, okay, the Celtics and Cavs might have the next 3 or 4 years tied down. We are 3 or 4 years away from being there. Let's just make steps to get there over the next 3 or 4 years. So then when it's a little bit more wide open, we're in a position to take it. And I know that it takes some patience because that is, 2029, 2030 seems so far away. But at the same time, especially if they get some lottery luck, that accelerates it a little bit too. So they put themselves in a really good position. You talked about having a lot of talent, a lot of assets on the roster. We're one moment away from a disgruntled star saying, I want out too. So I think the Raptors are in a good position going into this offseason, and it should be a very exciting time to be a Raptors fan, especially going into the draft lottery.
I got a question for you, and this is kind of putting you on the spot, but as I'm looking at it right now, from all the teams that are eliminated from postseason contention, the Spurs with Victor Wembanyama are obviously head and shoulders class of their own. That was a situation where they would have been a playoff team, no doubt, if Wemby stayed healthy and they didn't shut down De'Aaron Fox for the season. They already know what direction they're headed in. So we're going to take the Spurs out of it. But after that, could you make the case that the Raptors, as I'm looking at the standings right now, could you make the case that the Raptors have the best situation moving forward out of any team that is not in the play-in tournament, not in the playoffs right now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm taking that situation over Washington, over Brooklyn, over Charlotte. I'm missing somebody who didn't qualify for the postseason in the Eastern Conference.
Philly.
One other team, Philly.
But
it doesn't count.
That's a messy situation.
That's a messy situation. Who knows? You know what I mean? The only other and Portland is a good situation, and I'll probably put them right under Toronto. But they have more questions as far as I don't think that they have as many solid guys that could fetch more. I think that save from Shaedon Sharpe, but I think Anthony Simons, I think, is kind of close to his peak. Scoot, again, has a lot of, but again, I think that just when it comes to sheer volume, because we just named Scotty, Quick, Barrett, Brandon Ingram's a different, I think Brandon Ingram and Pirtle are kind of in that established veteran territory. But then when you talk about the three core guys and Quickly, Barnes, Barrett, and then you start talking about Walter, Grady Dick, Jonathan Mobo, Jamal Shedd, those young guys who even AJ Lawson has come in and stepped up and done a lot of good things for this franchise as well. So you're right. I do think that there's a real strong argument to be made, and not just because this is NBA Soundsystem Canada, not just because I got on the Jays cap today, that they have the second best of the 10 teams that aren't going to qualify for any postseason play. They have the second best, most promising future as far as just the situation in place, the culture that's being built. And it seems like they enjoy playing for Darko Rajakovic, and he's established a culture. I don't know if he's going to be the guy that kind of gets them where they need a different coach to take the training wheels off, but at the same time, cross that bridge when you get to it. And I think, it's an exciting time and a fun team to watch when you really sit down and watch.
Yeah, I mean, even in the just specifically in the Eastern Conference, I like their situation better than Brooklyn, Philly, Charlotte, or Washington. Like I said, Philly's a mess. We don't know what's going to happen to that team this offseason. They could completely blow it up. And we don't know what Joel Embiid's going to come back like. We talked about that last week. Can he really, after all these knee surgeries and everything that's going on with him, really get back to the player that was averaging 35 a game? Maybe he can. I hope he does. But it's I don't know if I'm banking on that at this point. And then when you look at the Western Conference, the Pelicans, they still have Zion. They still have Trey Murphy. They got Herb Jones. They got some guys like CJ McCollum. They still got some guys. That's not a terrible situation. But at the same time, how long have we been talking about, the Pelicans are pretty close, injuries away. At this point, they got to prove it. They're in prove it territory where I'm glad that you brought up Portland, because that was another team that I thought of as they're playing pretty good basketball at the end of the season. They would have been a fun team to sneak into the play-in tournament. But I completely agree with you that if you're going stacking up player for player, yes, maybe they were playing better team basketball, but I'm not taking their individual players over the Raptors' individual players. So the Raptors, even though it obviously wasn't a super pretty season, never really felt like they were competing for much, even from the very start of the year. It's not the worst situation to be in terms of where other rebuilding teams are. And like you said, all it takes is a little bit of lottery luck to expedite that. And I want to point out the Pistons and what Cage is doing and how quickly they went from being the laughing stock of the league last year, where it's don't be that team, to now they're a team that I forget who it was that said it. Was it Shaq that said it the other day that they're going to beat the Knicks in the first round of the playoffs? People are talking about them like that now. And it's obviously this is optimistic, glass half full thinking if you're a Raptors fan, but there's no saying that with a little bit of lottery luck and Scotty takes a leap and things really click with BI and RJ, and all of a sudden the Raptors are looking like one of those teams that it's it's a pretty dangerous team to play in the play-in tournament, the way that we're talking about Orlando, the way that we're talking about some of these other teams. So Chicago. So I don't think that they're in the worst situation by any means when it comes to the teams that are already eliminated from contention.
Yeah, and last point as we wrap up here, I was just on Sportsnet Fan 590, and they asked me about the Raptors season and my lasting thought. And I think the big thing, you can lament the fact that they didn't get more ping pong balls or whatever, but I think the lasting thing, I think back to the Jamal Shed game winner that could have been, but the Jacoby Walter crazy game winner, and we talked about it on here too. These young guys are learning how to win in the NBA, and it doesn't matter, if it's unnecessary wins or pointless wins or whatever you want to call it. They're learning how to win, and when it comes time to actually need to win, it won't be uncharted territory for them. There is the whole situation of like just, unethical tanking and just going out there and trying to lose. But I think we see it in all sports. Learning how to win counts for a lot. And I'm very excited to document that and take a victory lap in a year's time when we're talking about the Raptors prospects in the play-in tournament. That's our two declarations. The ethical tanking is going to pay off in the lottery. And then next year they will be at least in play-in tournament conversations. So excited to get back to that. As always, thanks to everybody who tunes in to the pod, wherever you get your podcast. Please make sure to subscribe on all podcast platforms, as well as follow us on YouTube and Instagram at NBA Sound System Canada. For Kyle Irving, my name is Gil McGregor. Thanks for tuning in to us this week. We will catch you back on here, same time, same place next week.